Today we're going to make a Tiki standard, the Navy Grog. For this drink, you're going to need a double old-fashioned glass, a jigger, a fancy straw, a cocktail shaker, citrus juicers, a fine mesh strainer, a cutting board and a small knife, a Lewis bag and an ice mallet, and optionally a food processor, and a Navy Grog ice cone kit, or a Pilsner glass and a chopstick. This drink uses Jamaican rum, Demerara rum, or in this case a Navy strength blend of both, light rum, freshly squeezed grapefruit juice, freshly squeezed lime juice, soda water, and honey syrup. This is probably the most important drink in the Tiki world, because without it, we might not have gotten Beachbum Berry. And without him, your Mai Tai would be a tequila sunrise with rum. Berry founded the Tiki bar Latitude 29 in New Orleans, and before that wrote several books on Tiki. And it's in this capacity, as a Tiki historian, that Berry became indispensable to the Tiki world. By the 1980s, a lot of Tiki recipes had more or less been lost. This is happening to a lot of drinks at the time for all sorts of reasons. But it also didn't help that Tiki had become passé. Tiki culture came from one man, Don Beach, as he became known in later life. But Vic Bergeron, Don's contemporary and business rival, really helped make it into a cultural phenomenon. Don was the visionary behind Tiki, and Vic was the P.T. Barnum, building upon Don's ideas and making them bigger, louder, and more spectacular. However, their rivalry with each other, and with other players in the space, led to a lot of secrecy. They treated recipes like trade secrets, but that didn't stop Vic's guests from coming in and asking for one of Don's drinks, and vice versa. So they had to approximate each other's drinks. Don in particular was highly confidential about his recipes. He would go so far as to write in code, and batch ingredients so that even his bartenders wouldn't know what's in his drinks. This secrecy, the fierce competition, and the fast foodization of formerly complex cocktails led to a lot of Tiki recipes being lost. But Berry spent decades chasing down old bar notebooks, handwritten recipes scrawled on scraps of paper, and picking the brains of bartenders who worked for Don and Vic. He was running around digging through all this esoterica and cracking Don's notebooks like they were the Da Vinci Code. And he did all of this because he fell in love with the Navy Grog. The name of the Tiki drink is a reference to the tradition of the British naval rum ration. For over 80 years, the Royal Navy had issued a daily ration of half a pint or about 240 milliliters of full-strength rum to all its sailors. But that changed in 1740 when Admiral Edward Vernon ordered that the ration be cut with water. Admiral Vernon was affectionately referred to as Old Grog because of his endearing quality of wearing coats made with a cheaper treated fabric called grog rum. So this mixture of rum and water became known as grog. Later, citrus was also added to the sailors' rations. That was the basis for this drink. It was created by Don Beach around 1941. And just like he enhanced the original Polynesian Dr. Funk for his menu, he also took the 18th century British naval grog and made it more nuanced and complex, more in line with his concept of creating what he called rum rhapsodies. This drink's signature garnish is an ice cone with a straw through it. Tiki mugs were one of Vic's innovations, but a signature garnish was often Don's answer to a Tiki mug. It's that final touch to the presentation that completes the aesthetic. This Navy Grog is Don's recipe, made with honey and soda water. Vic's Navy Grog was similar. He used the same 3 rums and 2 citrus juices, but replaced the honey and soda with simple syrup and pimento dram. Vic's spin-off of Don's recipe was the one that was featured in Martin and Rebecca Cate's book, Smuggler's Cove. It was also the version that Beachbum Berry fell in love with, and strove to recreate blindly by taste alone, which eventually led him to create the Ancient Mariner. For the honey syrup, I'm using a fairly strong concentration of 3:1 honey to water. And just like in the Zion Check zipper, I'm using a dark honey, but feel free to play around with different honeys to find your favorite for this drink. White grapefruit was a Don favorite. He often preferred white grapefruit in exotic drinks, as it was a little more mild than pink or red grapefruit. As for the rums, this drink uses 3 different rums in equal parts, which means that like a lot of Tiki drinks, it's a strong one. There's a light Cuban-Style rum, like what you'd use in a daiquiri, a dark Jamaican, and a Demerara rum. Feel free to use your favorite Jamaican and Demerara rums. But for this recipe, I'm using a Navy strength combination of the two. It's a 60-40 blend of Demerara and Jamaican rum, so it's not exactly the same formula as Don's original recipe. but it's Navy strength, so I felt it was more fitting. Before I get started, I like to cut, squeeze, strain, and bottle my citrus juices. That way it's easier to pour when it comes time to measure. Then chill your glass, fill it with ice and water, and set it aside. Next, beat up some ice. Add ice cubes to a Lewis bag and roll it up. If you don't have a Lewis bag, you can use a bar towel. Just fold it up so the ice can't escape. With the Lewis bag rolled, hammer it like you're too legit to quit. You can try pounding it into snow, and if you do it in small batches. But to make it easier on yourself, add the crushed ice to a food processor and give it a few pulses until it's shaved down into packing snow. Then tightly pack that into the ice cone kit. And jam in your rod to make a hole in the ice for your straw. If you don't have an ice cone kit, you can just pack a Pilsner glass with snow ice. Then use a chopstick to burrow out the hole for your straw. Place your cone in the freezer for about 4 hours. Once it's ready, pull out the rod and slip the ice out of the mold. Dump the ice and water from your double old-fashioned glass and plunk in your ice cone. Next, measure 2 ounces of Navy Rum. Add that to the shaker. With this sugar, that's 2 pours. Alternatively, you can measure out 1 ounce of Jamaican Rum and 1 ounce of Demerara Rum and add those to the shaker. Then measure 1 ounce of light rum. Add that to the shaker. Measure out 1 ounce of honey syrup. Add that to the shaker. Measure 3/4 ounce of lime juice. Add that to the shaker. Measure 3/4 ounce of grapefruit juice. Add that to the shaker. Measure out 3/4 ounces of soda water. Add that to the shaker. Add ice and give it a good shake to chill it down and give it some dilution. Strain the contents of your shaker over the ice cone in your double old-fashioned glass. Then slide your fancy straw into your ice cone. And there you have it. A drink for a drunken sailor. The Navy Grog. Akole Maluna. Click here for more videos. Be sure to subscribe and check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For links, more info, and the printed recipe, check out the description below.